Okay, so once again, this is the last class of the Fix Your Joints program. I know some of you have had some success with it. You said you have. And I think you said you have as well. Next program starts next week, and it's realigning your pelvis. And it's the first step in being able to get down and up from the floor. We are not going to be on the floor. I know you had some concerns about that. It's an interesting program, and I'm trying to incorporate some of the movements of babies that I'm studying. Because that's, from a computer standpoint, that's operating system 101. That's when we start to learn how to stand, walk, and whatnot. So we'll do the last class today for Fix Your Joints. I'm a little immobile. I hurt my back kind of bad at the gym Sunday. It was a lot worse yesterday, but I will not be joining you with some of the moves. I have a tendency, being a male, going to the gym and thinking that I'm still 18 years old. And once a year, my body tells me that I'm not. So.
You're doing good if it's only once a year that you do that.
It used to be a lot more than that, but I'll be 65 in a couple of weeks, so I'm starting to mature a little, finally, according to my wife. So, okay, so let's start with the rotational slap. I'm going to see if I can do this with you. So Zoom people, if you're new, the arms are dead weight. We're swinging at the waist and the hips, and the hands are slapping against the body. We very rarely move in this plane of motion, the transverse plane. And since we don't, when we do, sometimes there's a back issue. So twist at the waist, forget the arms are dead weight. And we're twisting at the weight, and the arms are just slapping against the body. Carol is the master of this movement. You do it every day? Yeah. It's great because we're taking the spine in a different plane of motion than we normally do. We normally move this way, and that's pretty much it. Very good, Nancy. Hands are just slapping against the body. Turn at the waist. The more power you use turning at the waist, the higher your arms are going to go in the air, and the louder the slap against the body. Okay, take a break for a couple seconds. We're going to do a couple more of these. Make sure your feet are even when you do this and relatively wide so you don't lose your balance. And let's go. Do you find this relaxing, Linda? Because lots of times you do it, I see your eyes start to close. Nice and relaxed. Long and slow. Okay, good. So if you remember, we're going to do the calf raises. So we're going to start one heel up and then just alternate. But keep pressure on it. There's always one foot in the air. Nice and slow. Try to keep the feet straight, Natalie. Go parallel. There you go. This is a super important movement for the ankle joints, because as I mentioned before, the ankles send a lot of information to the brain on how we're standing, where we're standing. Okay, take a break. So Jeannie, you mentioned last week that you have a slope in your backyard, and you're able to walk that now? Yeah. Okay, excellent. One of the reasons for that, once again, if we have If our ankles are moving properly, they send a lot of messages to the brain as far as if we're on uneven ground, if we step on a thumbtack, if we're in sand, if we're on pavement. And I have some clients with ankle issues, and in turn, that ankle's not sending all the information to the brain. And it's almost like if you have diabetic neuropathy and you don't have the feeling, your balance is all over the place, your stability's all over the place. So one of the reasons, maybe, is that you're feeling more confident because your ankles are sending the information that the brain needs to make a decision. So that's good. That's good. Let's do another set, please. 1 foot, 1 heel in the air, and just alternate. Nice and slow, always having 1 foot in the air. And you start to feel a little pump maybe in the calf muscles. Yep. Okay, let's do another set of rotational slaps, please. Think of your arms as a string of wet spaghetti. You just get hungry? I love pasta. It's not the best thing for me. Pasta and bread I love. It's the, I don't know if it's the evil. What's that? Butter and cheese and wine. You just named like my favorite diet. You put it all together. Yeah, exactly. It's not a blue zone. Well, actually, it is kind of. Okay. Right, right. And lots of times they'll use, if they're using real butter, obviously you don't want to use the processed stuff, or oil instead of butter. Everything in moderation, right. Moderation is one of my problems. I mean, how bad is one more slice with some butter, right? And then you look at how much you've eaten and it's like, oh my God. Okay, Jeannie, standing there, bring 1 heel all the way up. Okay, so we're doing this. There you go. That's it. Feel the difference? So Zoom people, we're going up on the toes and we're alternating. So there's always 1 foot in the air. Okay, if you want to take your bands, they're going to be behind you. If you're on Zoom, broomstick, mop handle, and I don't know if I can do this with my back, but we shall see. Kind of straighten out the band, and we're just turning. Nice and tall. Keep going. So keep going. Now, I had mentioned when this first started, I had a lot of people telling me about having pain doing yard work or pain getting something out of the back seat of a vehicle. So think about it. Right now, we're doing the twist to get something out of the back seat of a vehicle. Later on, when we're doing the arm and shoulder movements, we go into what is called shoulder abduction. This here is reaching into the back seat of a car. Now, the more we do these movements, the more comfortable our body becomes doing them. Okay, take a break, but keep your band. We're going to do another set of these. Best analogy I've heard concerning the body not doing particular movements so you don't make the mind-muscle connection is if you're right-handed and I give you a pen and say, I want you to write me a paragraph with your left hand. Extremely difficult because the mind hasn't made the connection with this side to right. Okay, straight band. Shoulder problem?
Yeah. Today I went to the mental body.
Is this the first time?
Yeah. I must have done something yesterday. Without realizing that I'm upset. Just really right in here.
Okay. Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. That's where the long head of your bicep attaches into a little groove here in the shoulder. Sometimes if the shoulder is out of place, that moves and it's almost like the tendon and the long head of the bicep, it's almost like a rope against a rock. And it kind of frays over time because it's not sitting in the groove properly. But I see that all the time, right here.
Right there.
Yep. Okay. Exactly. And let me know if there's any pain when we're doing the shoulder movements or if it gets better. Turn at the waist. So think about it if you were turning to get something in the back seat of the car. Or if it was my kids when they were little, I would turn, no, we're not there yet. All the time, are we there yet?
Now. You did it now.
Right. Yeah, I just saw a picture of him the other day. He looks like a little boy now.
Yeah.
He's 5 months. Really good, Carol. Carol's the master of spinal rotation. Okay, sit down and take a break. Okay, we'll give you a minute to grab some water. And then we're going to start doing some hip extension work. Once again, the hip extension is when we sit, we're in hip flexion. We sit all the time. We're eating, watching television, driving. If you sleep in the fetal position, you're in hip flexion. What we want to do is get into hip extension to straighten out this area here. Because our hip flexors cause a lot of back pain. And in turn, our pelvis isn't working properly either. Okay, so if you want to stand to get to the side of your chair. I saw you walking earlier, Nancy, with your hands behind your back. Cool. Good. Good. So I don't know if I told you, I was on a treadmill a little while ago. And I start off for a minute walking, holding the bars on the front of the treadmill. Then I start walking with my arms down, and then I started walking with my hands behind my back. As soon as probably 3-4 steps after I had my hands behind my back, my strides were so much longer that I was starting to hit the plastic on the front of the treadmill, which I found interesting. So if you can walk with your hands behind your back, some people don't like to, and my guess is they like their hands here in case they think they're going to trip, so your hands are here to protect you. But try walking with your hands behind your back, because look what it does to my posture. If I'm here, which is not bad posture, but I got my hands behind my back, everything changes. But it was interesting, it must have been my stride length, because I started hitting the plastic on the front of the treadmill with my stride as soon as I did this, because it shifted the weight of my torso back on my pelvis. Okay, so hip extension, just going back, hold. Really good, Carol. Now, this is a great balance exercise as well, because we're on one leg. Squeeze your glute muscle, squeeze your butt muscle when you get back there. Some of you may feel a stretch right through here. Do you feel it, Linda? That's one of your hip flexor muscles. Keep going. I have a private client whose hip flexors are so tight on this side, it actually pulls her forward. And that was a function of her doing a ton of walking back in the day in high heels. It also affected one of her Achilles tendons as well. Any pain? Wow, that was really good. Do the right side, please. That's ridiculously good. You didn't dance when you were younger? Okay, let's sit down. And we're going to work the ankles in a different way. So extend one leg and we're just going to roll. Nice and slow. Jeannie, don't think about the knee moving, just the ankle. Keep the leg straight, just the ankle. And then other direction. You may find that going in one direction is easier than the other. Once again, that's just sticky connective tissue. Other leg. Okay, take a break. So I mentioned before, if we're looking at the perfectly stable mobile body, we want our feet to be stable. Okay, that's why we were doing the arch work in the other class. We want our ankles to be mobile. We want our knees to be stable because knees don't have a huge range of motion. They pretty much do this or they do this. We want our hips to be mobile. We want our lower back to be stable. We want our thoracic spine, our mid-back, through our rib cage to be mobile. We want our scapula, our shoulder blades, to be stable. So if we're holding something overhead, we want our shoulders to be mobile, so we have this range of motion. We want our elbows to be stable, and we want our wrists to be mobile. The problem is, if we lose, say, for instance, mobility in the hips, and they become more stable, now the lower back has to become more mobile, which we don't want. We want the lower back to be stable. So if you took my program, the Move Pain Free 2 program, and we did the seated bracing, where we were tight here and kept the spine straight, and then sat just using the hips, over time, you notice that your hips become more mobile, and that's what we're looking for. Because otherwise, other parts. So if we lose mobility in our ankles, it kind of gets picked up a little bit by the knees, and then we start having knee pain because the knee is supposed to sit in a certain way, and if we change things above it or below it, the knee is going to reflect that. So, one leg again, ankle roll, other direction. You may notice things starting to free up a little bit. But ankles should be relatively mobile. Because if they are, so for instance, for those of you who hike in the woods, you never know if the ground is going to, at a different angle or this way or this way. So your ankle, your foot could be like this, could be like this, could be here, could be here. So we need a little bit of mobility in the ankles to be able to absorb that. And even more importantly, we need the ankles to be working properly to send information to the brain. Right.
looking up.
Yep. So the muscle would be called the anterior tibialis, which comes up the front here. So the thing is, we never do anything with our ankles, you know? So for instance, you'll see people, say bodybuilders doing calf work, and they're going up on their toes to work the big muscles in the back of the leg. Then they go up on their toes to work muscles under that in the back of the leg. But we have a muscle called the tibialis on the front of the calf that the only way you'd see is if you pulled your pant leg up and did this with your foot, you're going to see it right on top of your shin bone. So that may be it, but it could be connective tissue, could be ligaments or tendons, simply because we don't move our ankles.
So that you don't have no feet, and
Your feet get warm, right? Yeah, that makes perfect sense. We're getting blood flow in there, we're getting the lymphatic fluid moving. But think about all the work our feet and ankles do, and we never reward them with movement. Okay, let's get to the chair, and let's do the hip swings. I love this movement because we're moving the hip in all sorts of different ranges of, I'm sorry, right. Hip swings, let's go forward. Thank you. We're going to do that as well. So once again, we very rarely move our hips in this plane of motion. But we have to think of our hips and our shoulders as our primary engines. The spine is just a chassis. The spine should not be doing a lot of work, just stabilizing stuff. The forwards. To the side. I see some people, and your daughter can probably do it, where they'll come here and the foot comes out to the side like this. My body would just break in half. Try to stay braced through here when you do it. Okay, now we're going to go to hip circles, which is my favorite. Knee up, out to the side, down, up, back to the midline, down. And over time, this becomes a very relaxing move. And it really opens up your groin. And I can't get down on the floor right now because of my back, but once again, the first move in getting off the floor is, if you're on all fours, is getting one leg with the foot flat. And this is going to help that. Okay, take a break, grab some water, and then we're going to go back and do some more hip stuff, and then we'll start with the upper body. Once again, the more water you drink, in theory, actually not in theory, it's true, the better your body will move. Because all our fascia, all our connective tissue, the netting in the body that holds everything together, if you go to an autopsy or a cadaver study and cut open through the skin and you see the white fascia there, you can slice the fascia and see water droplets. You definitely don't want to come over to my house and watch movies. I'll never forget the first time I saw it. It's like this lecture, and the doctor is talking about it. It's very interesting. And all of a sudden, he takes a scalpel, and the camera goes to this cadaver. I'm like, ooh, I wasn't expecting this. Okay, let's get up. We're going to do some more hip swings. Loosen up. Once again, you may feel some warmth. You're also going to get some synovial fluid into the joint, which is the body's natural lubricant. Now hip circles. Has anybody been doing the floor moves I've shown you, like on the bend or whatever? Okay. Yeah. 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 Me too. But you're on the floor. And every time you do it, do you feel a little bit more comfortable being on the floor? Excellent. So Zoom people, one of the students, I gave them some floor moves how to do on the floor, on the bed. And the more she does it, the more comfortable she is on the floor, which is huge. Because say, for instance, if you were to do the moves for 5 minutes a day, in theory, if there's no medical issues, 10 years from now, you should be able to get up and down from the floor. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. We're going to be doing that in the next program, in the pelvis program. So what I want you to do now that you're getting comfortable on the floor is start to roll. Okay? So you don't want to continue to roll across the floor. If you're on your back, roll over onto your stomach, and go to the left, come back to the back, roll over to the right. When you do that, all these stabilizer muscles are firing in your torso. And there was actually a gentleman with balance and stability issues. They get him on the floor. He could roll to the left. He could not roll to the right. Once they got it to roll to the right, his balance and stability issues went away. Because basically these muscles weren't firing because they were telling him to write something with his left hand. Make sense? Okay? So they just made the connection. Mm-hmm. Okay, you guys can have a seat? Okay, that's excellent. Okay, Jeannie, you've been doing the moves on the floor or on the bed? Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Sure. And think about it, and once again, I can't do it because my back is bothering me today, but if you're sitting on the floor cross-legged, we're never in this position. And that in turn is stretching these muscles and putting them in different positions than they normally are. So how many times have you done it? Was it just once or? Okay, okay. Okay, and you were doing it as well, right?
Yeah, and I do it automatically. I sit a lot on the floor.
Okay, excellent, excellent.
So more comfortable for me than on the sofa or on the chair.
Sofas are tough because they're designed for us to sprawl, you know? And the body, even though at the time kind of likes it, it's not good. It's not
You
good.
can tell.
Like I said before, if I ever designed seats for automobiles, you'd go into the showroom, you'd sit in the car that I designed the seat, and be like, oh my God, this is awful. And you'd get out immediately. Okay. But that's good. That's really good. Okay, let's go to the upper body. First thing we're going to do, actually, before we go to the upper body, let's do this move here. And just kind of lean forward, stretch through the area. Now what I want you to do, if you feel uncomfortable in this position, first of all, you may want to hold the chair just so you have balance. Second of all, if you feel uncomfortable getting to that position, take a deep breath through the nose into your belly, into the diaphragm. And just relax, exhale, take a few deep breaths. What we're doing here is we're activating our parasympathetic nervous system. So if you're in this position and the body is like, oh, I don't like this, I'm frightened, this is dangerous, once you breathe into it, you start to become more relaxed in that position. And the more relaxed you are in the position, the better. And then eventually, this can transition into going down on one knee. Okay, let's do the other side. Just breathe into it. You still feel a stretching in the back of the ankles? Yeah. So think about it. If you were to get down and up from the floor, if you're on all fours and then you get into the position where your front leg, you bring it up, the fact that you're tight behind the ankle could be the difference between getting up from the floor and not getting up from the floor. Just breathe into it, relax. Okay, grab your bands, please. And we're going to start the upper body work. Arms straight out. And all we're going to do is think about taking the muscles around the shoulder blades and pulling them together. And just hold. So all we're doing is we're activating those muscles there. This is a move that can help you to keep your shoulders healthy. It's also going to help you with your posture, because now these muscles between the shoulder blades and the upper back are firing. So when we sit, we do this. When we get these muscles firing doing the band work, they do this. So think about squeeze, pulling with the back muscles, not necessarily moving the hands. Really good, Carol. Nice relaxed movement, but squeeze. When you get to the back, hold and feel those muscles around your shoulder blades contracting. Take a break. We're going to do a couple more. But when you think about it, how often during the day do we even do this? And how often during the day do we do it with a little resistance, like a band? But just doing that a couple times, I can feel that in the muscles around my shoulder blades. So they're active, they're mobile, they're awake. And that's the key. We want our muscles to be awake. Okay, let's do another set, please. Really good, Nancy. Really good. You started out with the back. That's excellent. Straight arms, Natalie. Wrists out. Okay, good. Look how wide you guys are now. The first time we did this a couple weeks ago, you were kind of like here. Now those muscles are firing. Really wide. How's your shoulder?
This one is fine.
This one's fine? Okay. Really good, Jeannie. Man, you're way out there. How's your right shoulder? Fine right now? There's always a caveat, right now.
Right now,
Okay, let's put the band down, remain standing, and we're gonna do the zipper, which is this. And just kind of breathe into it. Can you bring that elbow back, or is that pain? Yeah. Okay. Now the other side. Other direction. Really good. Get nice and tall. How's that with the shoulder? When you go in. So when you do what is called internal rotation, you have an issue there, okay? But the external rotation is okay. Okay? Really good, Jeannie. Other side. So all we're doing is putting the shoulders through different ranges of motion, which is something, once again, we never do this during the day. But it's going to help when we're reaching for something, especially if we're adding load to that, like a pocketbook or a box or something. Okay, other side. Okay, take a break, grab some water, and remain standing. How's the shoulder feel? Okay? Breathe in here.
my whole body is very stiff, like that, it's
Yeah, me too.
weird, every day is different.
Yeah, the way you moved previously, the way you slept, diet has some things to do with it. Okay, so now we're going to do shoulder flexion, which is bringing the arm up. When we go into flexion, the palm is facing forward. You were there already before I even said it. Okay. Palm stays forward. Once the palm starts to go to the side, stop. You want the palm forward. Just breathe into it. As you breathe into it, you may find, I just saw you had more motion once you breathed into it. Okay? Other arm. So don't think about moving the hand, think about moving the shoulder. Breathe into it, and then see if you have another ½ inch of movement. Wow, that's really good. How's that on the other side, on the right side? Okay, so basically, if you speak to a doctor or a physical therapist, your shoulder issue is internal rotation. Nice and fluid. Breathe into it. And then see if you have another ½ inch. Okay, good. Now we're going to do shoulder extension, which is backwards with the palm facing backwards. Okay? We have the most stability in our joints. With flexion, if we externally rotate, extension internally rotate. Now, let me know if this bothers you. So if it does, then don't do it or get to the point before it hurts. So that hurts? Okay, all right. So stop a few inches before that, but once again, that's internal rotation. So, we're going back, palm facing backwards, zoom people. Nice and relaxed and easy. We're not trying to force anything. But unless you're a diver or a skier, you're probably not in this position all that much. Rod jumper, maybe. Now, how does this feel on the front of your shoulder? Good? Yep. When you can't go any further, take a deep breath through the nose into the stomach. Relax into the position and see if you have another quarter of an inch, but don't force it. That's really good, Jeannie. Exactly. So one of the students, Zoom people, just said her brain is saying this feels good, and it is, because the body wants to move in all different planes of motion, because that's the way we did it when we were kids. And then we stopped, and when we get back to it, the brain likes it. So Jeannie, in 2 years, we have to have you doing cartwheels across your lawn, just like when you were 7. Nice and relaxed. Okay, let's go to flexion again. Palm forward and up. Now turn the palm and go back. Up and back. Excellent. Other side. Palm forward, up, down, turn, palm back, and back into extension. You just moved an extra 2 inches, Jeannie. But think about it, when we're doing this, we're at end range of motion, okay? And that is the yard work stuff that's reaching into the back seat for the pocketboard. We're in end range of motion. And since we never do it during daily life, that's why we can feel pain. Or like you said, if you don't get close enough in the drive-through window and you have to do this, the body's not used to it. Okay, so let's do some other shoulder movements. So, finger pointing forward, and we're coming up here. We're going up, down, all the way out to the side. Don't think about your hand or your finger, think about the shoulder joint, the ball in the socket. Any pain? A little bit? So once again, we're thinking about moving the shoulder, not the hand. Relax up here, breathe into it. See if you can think about sucking the shoulder into the joint. So now we're moving the shoulder in all sorts of different planes of motion. The shoulder actually can complete 8 different joint actions. We probably do 2 during the course of the day. Okay, other side. Anyone feel their shoulders getting warmer? Yeah? How does your shoulder feel, by the way? The biceps tendon here. Good, good. So it may have been a little stiff this morning, and that's why the tendon wasn't sitting in the groove properly. Okay, take a break. Anybody have any pain doing that? You? Okay. Going across this way, yes. If you ever want to see somebody about that, shoot me off an email and I'll let you know the two joint actions that cause you difficulties. Okay, ready? Think about starting the movement with the shoulder. Forget the hand, forget the arm. Your extension is a lot more than when we first started. A lot more. But think about it, that's what we're looking to do, is to have more end of range motion, so that way if we go to do a movement around the house or in the yard, there's no pain. I still like to drive through a window. Because it's funny, like I remember like even going to the bank, if you don't get close enough, but then again, we could have bigger problems. When you do the movement, try to keep the arm straight, Jeannie. There you go. Now you're getting full shoulder movement. How many people feel a stretch right through here when you do that? Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah. Because when you think about it, how often do we put our arms over our heads? Hardly ever. And then in turn, we get all sticky through here. So for you people who've been with me for a long time, my favorite one is my student who said, it's so much easier to reach for my wine glass after dinner. And I said, well, I'm glad I could be of assistance.
Very important.
Very important, right? Nice and loose. Now let's make the movements longer. That's it. Nice and long. Extend that arm. Other side. I wonder how many people would sign up for a program if the homework was, okay, I want you to reach for the wine glass. Now I want you to reach here all the way to the right of the bottle. We're now doing the pour. That class would be sold out. Okay. Couple hip circles, just to loosen up before we finish. And And let's just do a few sets of rotational slaps. Nice and easy. Nice and relaxed. Deep breath through the nose into the belly. Feel yourself going to sleep as you do this. Just wake up before you get behind the wheel of your vehicles. Nice and easy. Nice and relaxed. You're definitely asleep. Yes, no snoring. Okay. Hold on to your chair. One knee up. Other knee. So this is a stretching movement, but I can't believe how well balanced you all are. Keep going. Hold it at the top a little. Your hip mobility is ridiculous. I was watching a video last night on training sprinters. You have the hip flexion of a sprinter. So if you want to train for the 2024 Olympic Games, let me know. But you do, I mean, that's how high these sprinters were getting. Really good, Nancy. Are you feeling it a little bit back here, stretching out? Yep, yep. Nice. Okay, one more set of rotational slaps and we are done. Nice and relaxed. Get tall. Get super, super tall. Okay, good. We are all done. Thank you very much for taking the program. For those of you who are going to be doing the realigning your pelvis program, it's going to be interesting. It's a bunch of kind of short, small moves, but what we're looking when we sit, our pelvis has shifted. This is the center of our body right here. Once we realign it, you're going to feel your upper body connected to your lower body, okay? We're going to be doing a lot of work in our sacroiliac joints. Their primary responsibility is to transfer weight from the upper body to the lower body. So once we've done that, and this is all kind of solid here, you're going to be walking differently, you'll be standing differently, and sitting differently when you think about it. When you don't think about it, you won't be. Bring the bands. I don't think we're going to be using them, but just in case. Okay? Thank you very much.